Hello, this is Paranormal Girl, and today I'm going to talk about the history of Ouija boards and where they came from. There are plenty of horror stories that use Ouija boards, usually involving extremely attractive teenagers who unwittingly summon an unfriendly demon. But the history of the Ouija board itself is far more complicated and fascinating than Hollywood makes it out to be. It involves ancient Roman sacrifices, coffin makers, sister spiritualists, and a murder trial. And that's before you even touch its occult reputation. The popularity of a Ouija board itself dates back to its first introduction onto the American market in the 1890s. But the idea behind it is far older, and it's had a tumultuous time ever since it first arrived. If you've never used a Ouija, it's a type of talking board. It has a series of letters and numbers on it, and users put their fingers on a planchette, a small piece of wood or metal. The theory is that spiritual forces will push people's fingers on the planchette towards particular letters and numbers to spell messages and communicate from the afterlife, or so they say. Whether you believe in the spiritual world or not, the Ouija board is an incredibly interesting object, and you'll sound deeply cultured if you can talk about the 19th century spiritualism when someone inevitably brings out one at Halloween. The Ouija board itself isn't even 130 years old, according to the Smithsonian magazine, but the idea of using talking boards to communicate with spirits or ghosts is very ancient. Attempting to divine the will of the gods or spirits through earthly interpretation was common among many civilizations. The ancient Romans used augury, in which specially trained augurs watched the patterns of bird flight, the ways in which sacred chickens peck the ground, and the entrails of sacrificed animals to determine the right thing to do. The practice of literomancy, or deciphering characters, also has a strong history in Chinese tradition by telling the future. However, the rumour of Pythagoras had a talking board is in fact not supported by any historical evidence, according to the Museum of Talking Boards. So the talking boards in America could have come from the spiritualist sisters. The specific characteristics of modern talking boards, in which letters on the table were used as a way for spirits to communicate, may have originated with the Fox sisters. Three famous 19th century American mediums, they used table turning and rapping as signs that ghosts were talking to them, and also employed automatic writing, in which they wrote whatever came into their heads while ghosts controlled them. It may have been their idea to use letters to produce more defined messages, but spiritualism was so popular in the 19th century America that it's hard to narrow down the exact origin. Talking boards were actually pretty common in the 19th century in the United States, but none were as popular as the Ouija. J. Edward Cornelius, in his History of the Ouija Board, explains that the first modern Ouija was marketed in the United States in 1890. As the country was gripped by interest in spirits and mediums, while details were scant, it appears to have been invented by a man named E.C. Reich, a coffin maker in Maryland with a strong interest in spiritualism. The name Ouija was first applied to the board at this time, and it was marketed as Ouija, the wonderful talking board. The patent was filed by Reich's business partner Elijah Bond in 1892, though it's not clear exactly who came up with the idea and who took it onto the market. The Smithsonian magazine reports that the patent officer only allowed them to get a patent if the device spelled out his name correctly, which it did, but we don't have any proof of that. Cornelius notes that the design was further refined in 1910 when the device had a circle added to its planchette to see the letters underneath, as we still see today. So the name came from a seance. The name Ouija, it seems, doesn't come from the French and German words for yes, as the myth goes. According to a history of the Ouija board by Jeremy Gans, a criminal justice historian, you'll learn why the justice system was interested in the Ouija board later. The name came from Elijah Bond's seance with his sister-in-law. Apparently, Bond held a session on his board in the late 1890s to ask the spirit world for a name for his new product. It spelt out Ouija. When I asked the meaning of the word, it said, "Good luck." Gans concluded that whether this was true or not, the name was a success, distinguishing the board from other products through a combination of luck, catchiness, and canny marketing. The board started to acquire sinister reputation almost immediately after its production. In 1919, J.G. Rappert published a book called The New Black Magic and the Truth about the Ouija board, in which he reported that doctors had told him about 3 people for whom the use of the Ouija board has brought about a state of dementia. It was even the subject of a court case in the mid-1920s to determine whether it was counted as a toy, and should therefore be subject to the 10% tax levied on US toy sales. Judges battled over the question, with one arguing that it is unique in a class by itself. In the end, it was judged to be a toy because it was used mostly as a means of social entertainment or play, even if people also used it as a serious means of communicating with spirits. Then, it played a crucial role in a murder trial in the mid-90s. In 1994, the English Court of Appeals had to answer a crucial question. Were jurors in a murder trial allowed to use a Ouija board? Stephen Young, 35, was initially convicted of murdering Harry and Nicola Fuller, but the order for a retrial was given after it was revealed that several of the jurors in his case had used a Ouija board to attempt to contact the souls of the deceased and make their verdict. The court decided that it wasn't admissible, and Young got a retrial. Even without a Ouija board, he was convicted of murder the second time. If you bring out a Ouija board to entertain yourself on a dull night, you're tapping into a very long history of spiritual communication, even if you don't manage to get any friendly ghosts to take your call. And that's pretty cool. So now let's have a look at one such incident where a demon called Zozo was contacted. Zozo, the Ouija board demon who will ruin your life. Zozo is a Ouija board demon. He can possess people who use a Ouija board by slowly gaining their trust. They are not always aware that they are being possessed. Zozo may lie and pretend to be a sympathetic spirit instead of a malevolent Ouija board demon. Most people do not know that they are talking to Zozo until it's too late. So, who is Zozo? Zozo is a malevolent Ouija board demon who terrorizes and or possesses those it comes into contact with. Stories about Zozo increased in popularity in 2009 following a viral post on a paranormal message board. Darren Wayne Evans brought Zozo, the Ouija board demon, to popular knowledge when he posted a long and horrifying story of his encounter with Zozo on the True Ghost Tales message board, warning others that Ouija boards are not a toy. Evans said, "During my experiences with Ouija boards, one particular spirit always seemed compelled to make its presence known. Its name is Zozo. Today I refuse to even pronounce its name, as I believe the mere pronunciation of it can cause it to manifest itself. Too many times to count, it has at first pretended to be a nice spirit, or pretend to be whomever I was trying to contact, but eventually it showed its true self, cussing me, threatening me, and others present in the room. Once it actually cussed me using what looked like Latin or Hebrew and using biblical terminology. I was generally fascinated and startled by how many times Zozo showed up, even in many different states and many different Ouija boards. It was always wound up to be very nasty and commented freely about how it wanted to possess my girlfriends and take them to paradise. When asked where paradise was, it spelt Hell, hell. One time after Zozo was being extremely evil, I walked into the bathroom only to see my 1-year-old daughter about to drown. Her mother had left her alone in the tub just for a second, and somehow the water got turned on and was overflowing. Instinctively, she'd had her face tilted up and was seconds from going under when I grabbed her from the water. The next day she was hospitalized for some weird internal infection and was put in isolation for 14 days straight as doctors tried to diagnose the illness. We almost lost her, and that was when I began to suspect the demonic attack. Evan said that since his experience, he has made contact with other people who have spoken to someone called Zozo via a spirit board. Skeptics believe Evans invented the entire existence of Zozo with his post in 2009, but there are earlier mentions of Zozo on the internet. A Nigerian forum talks about him in 2005, and Zozo may be another name of Pazuzu, an almost 3,000-year-old demon who has the body of a man and a scorpion's tail. You might remember the demon Pazuzu. He actually showed up in the very famous horror film The Exorcist, and it was centralized around this demon figure here. In 1818, a book called the Dictionnaire Infernal was published. The book was on the topic of demonology and included a list of demons. The book contains an account of a young girl who is terrorized by demons 2 years earlier, and one of those demons is named Zozo. It is believed that Roland Doe was a victim of Zozo. Roland Doe is a pseudonym for a 14-year-old boy who underwent an exceptionally violent exorcism in 1951 and became the inspiration for the famous novel and film The Exorcist. Roland's aunt was a regular user of the Ouija board and had him use it with her. By all reports, after the exorcism, Roland grew up and did not experience issues with the demonic possession again. In 1977, Zozo is also believed to be behind the famous Enfield poltergeist haunting as a catalyst where the two young sisters playing with a Ouija board at a friend's home. During that initial encounter, they say they knew something bad had happened and they had seen the face of a demon manifest. Am I talking to Zozo? How to know if you're talking to Zozo, the Ouija board demon? Most people do not know that they're talking to Zozo until it's too late. Zozo can lie and mimic other spirits. He can pretend to be whoever the person using the Ouija board will be most sympathetic to. He can pretend to be the spirit of a scared little girl or a beloved relative who has passed. Even if you ask directly for a name, Zozo is not obligated to reveal himself. Many people believe that the Ouija board should not be regarded as a toy or game. They believe that it's a door to the spirit world, and it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. Once the door is open, any spirit, good or evil, can walk through it and contact you, or worse. If you do decide to use one, Follow the rules of a Ouija board. It is also very important not to use a Ouija board if you're afraid of coming into contact with Zozo or any demonic entity, as they tend to prey on people's fears. Signs that you're talking to Zozo. The mood or temperature of the room may suddenly shift. Even if Zozo doesn't directly reveal himself, he may continue to point to the letter Z or even call himself Zaza. Once Zozo reveals himself, he will often spell his name over and over up to 100 times in a row. The Z and the O are located at the opposite ends of the Ouija board's lower line. In order to spell its name, Zozo will often move the planchette in the shape of an infinity signal between the Z and the O. Glass, especially mirrors, may break. Scratches may appear on the body of anyone in the residence, even if they're not participating in playing with the Ouija board. What to do if you talk to Zozo on a Ouija board. If you think you have made a connection with Zozo, immediately close out your Ouija board session by moving the planchette to goodbye. To be safe, no one involved should use a Ouija board again in the near future. If it's possible, it's also best to vacate the space for a few days to remove all energies Zozo could be attracted to. Zozo in popular culture. Here's a fun fact. Zozo was the original name for Curious George of the Curious George books, though this is obviously unrelated to Zozo, the Ouija board demon. In 2010, a video titled Scariest Ouija Board Demon Zozo Possessed Girl was uploaded to a YouTube channel, A Ouija Warning. This video shows a girl contacting Zozo and becoming possessed and is approaching 6 million views. I'll leave a link in the description because we have a few videos here that I can't show for obvious reasons, but if you visit this page, you can click on the links here. It's worth a watch. In 2012, a movie about Zozo was made, I Am Zozo. The plot follows 5 young people who encounter the Zozo demon after messing around with a Ouija board. Darren Wayne Evans, who popularized the story of Zozo with his personal account, had a cameo in the movie. Zozo the Ouija board demon was also featured on an episode of Ghost Adventures where the crew investigated Darren Wayne Evans's home. And again, you can find that on YouTube. It's worth a watch. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Darren Wayne Evans has since co-authored a book on the Zozo phenomena, where he says that he found a creepy-looking Ouija board buried under the house where he first met Zozo. The board is itself labelled as a Zozo board, where most have Ouija labels somewhere on them. So, is Zozo real? Zozo is not the name of a demon that appears in the Bible or in official literature. Zozo may be an internet urban legend similar to Slender Man, where a really good story, real or imagined, creates a kind of a hysteria. People go on to have their own real experiences with the character in question, because the story is fresh in their subconscious. This is especially true with something that's suggestible as the movements of a Ouija board planchette, where a group of people can unknowingly see and interpret movements according to what they want to see. Because Ouija boards aren't something themselves that have been proven to be real, methods of contacting the spirit world is not possible to prove, and that the Zozo phenomena itself is real or not real. So my thoughts on Ouija boards are, and I've actually tried to use a Ouija board myself, and it didn't come out very successful. What I will say is the letters that I cut out when I was in my very early teens, I'd actually spread out on a table and put a glass in the center. They literally blew off the table. 3 times I tried this. 3 times they blew off. In the end, I gave up. and I interpreted that as do not touch. This is very dangerous. Do not meddle with things you do not understand. So my own thoughts on Ouija boards are, don't play with them. They are not a toy. The actual board itself isn't dangerous, but the user and the intention of what you want to use it for is dangerous. And it can act as a portal. There are many, many stories I've heard in real life and read in books and on the internet that people have meddled with Ouija boards. Basically, they don't understand what they're playing with. It's not a toy. It can contact the spirits. And worse still, it can open up a portal. It is a doorway to another world. Probably something more evil than we actually realize. It's not the spirit world we're contacting. It's the demonic. So my warning to you, do not meddle with Ouija boards. They can be very, very dangerous. So what are your thoughts on Ouija boards? Has anyone here actually used a Ouija board? And if so, let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe my videos. And if there's any suggestions that you'd like for me to make a video on, let me know in the comments below.